Friends, when we look around at our world today, we can easily say here in our Western world, in our culture, in Canada, the USA, and Western Europe, we have become a society of consumption and the accumulation of stuff. And that by, unfortunately, all the evidence, we can easily say that we have not really been the greatest stewards of all that we have been entrusted with. In the big picture, unfortunately, we are doing anything but living in harmony with the natural world around us. And unfortunately, it appears that what many would call nature is starting to let us know that we have been far too careless with the natural world around us. And I believe this is clearly evident by the extremes we now are encountering in our weather patterns. Just recently, if you're watching the news, there was a hurricane off the East Coast that went from 0 to class 5 in record time, which kind of scared some of the meteorologists. And just recently on PEI, we had the hottest day ever recorded up west on Prince Edward Island. And it could be easily argued that these are the direct results of human activity, in particular, human activity associated with advanced and advancing societies. Now, if we step back a little bit and remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was horrible, it was tough, but there was a few good things that occurred. And in some locations where industrial smog had long been a scourge and obscured the heavens, in those areas where their industry was actually had forced to power down for a short period of time, this powering down enabled them to see the blue sky, for many of them, the actual first time in their lives. Now on PEI, yes, we are going forward here on PEI with our waste watch system in place, our green and black cans, and the number of windmills we have, and the many solar panels like I have and many others have on their homes. But is it enough? Simple question. The answer to the question of our stewardship of the world around us is a complicated and challenging question to tackle, and I do not have all the answers. I will admit this, though, as it will not be a quick fix overnight. Nonetheless, the tough question remains that if we claim to be part of God's family, which we do, then the health and the environment around us is something, I argue, and many others, and hopefully you too, is something that we cannot ignore or take for granted. Friends, we simply cannot ignore the environment if we truly are ones that love our neighbors as ourselves, as Romans 13:9 speaks about. Now, I've read a lot from the book of Genesis over my many years in seminary and the many courses I took, and since I've read all that stuff and become more aware, I have found that my relationship with our environment has been shaken to its core regarding the wonders that God has created, and for some, they would argue, He has put us in charge of looking after. I used to take the environment for granted. It was just going to be, everything was going to be okay, but a little bit of education, I don't take it for granted anymore. As one reads through Genesis chapter 1, one will find the phrase, and God saw it was good. 5 times recorded for us. Just after God made something or created something like the seas, the plants, the trees, the vegetables, the sea creatures, the birds, and the animals, it was good. And it is clear that God put a lot of effort and thought into every aspect of creation, and we're still finding some wonderful things He created in the depths of the seas and in some of our far-flung, more remote places. He put a lot of effort into it and thought. And finally, after our world was completed at the end of the 6th day, we read that God went even further with it was good to saying it was very good. After seeing everything He created all together in one place on one planet. So my argument is that if everything God created around us is good, very good, then how should we respond to it? And the world around us, is the world around us just for our selfless exploitation, or is it there for us to care for? Remember, Scripture says God put us in the garden to look after it. However, hopefully we would all default for caring for it. As an addition to this paragraph, I also want everyone to realize that humanity, very us, is included in the final statement when God said it was very good. We are also part of creation, and we can't forget this. And that very God is pleased how he made us. So, if at times you feel a little worthless or maybe underappreciated or not valued, please know that God has made you for a good reason. He's placed you where you are, and you have value. You are very good. So, as I said, God created us, the world around us. But today I will draw you to two passages that speak a lot about our relationship and purpose regarding the world around us. As I said in Genesis 1:28, where God has given humanity authority to rule over the earth. It's a big responsibility. Don't take that lightly. In Genesis 2:15, where we see that God puts man in the garden to care for it, not to abuse it, take advantage of it, destroy it, pave it over, but to care for it. From these two passages alone, it is not a big stretch to grasp that with this responsibility that God has placed upon all of humanity, not just a few, but every one of us, he expects us to take responsibility for the environment and the various creatures we share this planet with. We share this planet. So, with this in mind, what does being a faithful steward look like? Now, I believe a good and faithful steward, I argue, has a number of wonderful traits. I'm going to talk about 4 of them today, not the only ones, but 4 in particular. The first trait or quality that is a part of a faithful steward is where one believes and understands that everything we have is not our own. This statement for some can be quite jarring to one's understanding of the world and their place in it. Imagine that everything we have acquired in our lives is only really something temporary in our big picture of our lives. We often say we own our homes, but do we really? We pay taxes on it for the privilege of living on the land, but do we really own it? Now, once I have drawn my last breath, hopefully in a number of years, and have gone home to glory, apart from my will, I'll have little say over my home's future. And when I look around at my cars, my truck, and my material stuff, the truth is also the same, in that all of it is just things I paid money for so I could control them to some degree for my limited time here on earth. I came into this world naked and screaming, and I will leave this world with no suitcase in tow, hopefully not naked or screaming, when I stand before God. Friends, we all stand before God with nothing but our life history, both the good and the bad of it, as to what we truly own. This is what we only own. All of our earthly stuff will be meaningless before God, because in the end, all that we truly did control and acquire in this life has not been owned by us in any true sense. We just had the privilege of using it, manipulating it, or whatever. So maybe all that we control needs a little greater care taken with it, and done so with an attitude of gratitude as we ethically and morally manage what God has entrusted to us. He's entrusted to us so very much. When my house burnt down 30 years ago, Kim and I were devastated. Some of you remember that. But I was really amazed that when the smoke settled and the dirt cooled, what was truly valuable to us was not our stuff. We missed it, but not really. But what was truly important was our family. Our stuff we quickly realized was only temporary, and as such, we carried on and thank God for the blessing He granted us with our family and our friends and our community. The second quality of a good steward is tied to the first quality in many ways, where if we do not really own anything, then who does own everything? Again, this is a tough thing for many people to grasp and to wrap their heads around, as to the fact that what they control is only something loaned to them for a short time, because the ultimate owner is the creator of everything created, very God. In the 50th Psalm, verses 10 and 11, this is really driven home for us with the statement that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and everything that moves in the fields. It doesn't say select things, but everything. I urge you to think about this, where everything around us is owned by God, and we are being blessed to be able to interact and care for what God created. In reality, my friends, God is in control, and we have a responsibility to care for that which is God's. So this means that the air we breathe, the mineral resources we use and consume, the food we eat, even mushrooms, which I don't like, spinach and canned corn, which I hate even worse than mushrooms, and the peas are owned by who marry us. Although God is complete without us and requires nothing from us, nonetheless, He still lets us take care of what He owns. And when we come to this realization, it should shake us into our very senses to care for all that we interact with in a godly manner. In a godly manner. For some reason, God has let me live at a house at 28 Townsend Lane, Bedeque for about 30 plus years and maybe 30 more. He lets me ride my bicycle. Kim doesn't let me ride my bicycle shorts, which is a good thing. He allows me to heat my home, and so on. As such, we cannot take for granted anything God has entrusted to us, as He has blessed us to be His stewards. Think about that. Stewards, given us something to do within creation, so we can live lives that bring glory to Him. Not live lives that are self-seeking and selfish, but lives that bring glory to Him. The third quality today I want to talk about is where we are required to be good. The third quality required as being a good steward is that we need to step back and realize that everything we do and every decision we make should be made by first asking ourselves as to how can we serve the Lord with it. This is one of the tough questions in our societies of today that tells us over and over again, societies that tell us over and over again that we are to be the center of the universe, that we need to put our needs before others, but that's wrong thinking. That's not right. So if we have a job or an occupation or a hobby, whatever, as examples, can we be doing it for God first? Yes, I argue we can, by doing the very best we can at whatever we are doing. You become the best teacher, the best baseball player, the whatever you can be. Can we serve the Lord through our recreational activities? Yes, we can. We can when these activities strengthen our bodies, minds, and help us build friendships. And maybe take a little bit of stress out of our lives. Friends, I urge you to look at your life today and take an honest assessment of everything you do. And if whatever you're doing is putting a barrier between you and God in some way, then maybe those things or decisions need to be fixed or removed from your life until it can be brought into harmony with your desire to serve the Lord first. If something is putting a barrier in your life, evaluate it. The final quality I want to talk about today is that we are to love God first and foremost in every aspect of our lives. As hard as it may be to grasp at times, this even includes our closest and dearest family, friends, and members. Nevertheless, this is where our faith in God must rest. God first. And that it is to be, I said, God first before everything else. Friends, we only have one planet to live on. There is no second option of hopping onto one of Elon Musk's rocket ships, not the ones that explode, to restart our lives on another planet if this one is destroyed or wrecked or tilted or whatever. So we need to grasp that we do not own this planet, but we are only stewards of it. Ultimately, regardless of any power or influence we may have in it, God owns everything, and all that we do is to be serving the Lord first before all others. So, friends, we do so by loving God before everything else, and by being faithful, good stewards who take a conscious effort in not taking God for granted, especially when we interact with the world around us. Years ago, before I was married, and like many young men, I was pretty excited to get my first car, and my granddaughter's only a year away from her license. Scary. And Eli, who is 9, has offered to give her driver's lessons, so I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun, isn't it? But years ago, I remember I had cash. I had $400 cash, and I went out and I paid for this car with money. Something I wish I could do today with hard cash, but anyways, it was $400. But I had to go to AVCO, kind of a legalized loan shark at the time. And I had to borrow $600 to pay for the car insurance. Pay cash for the car, got a loan for the car insurance. Seems odd. All this for a very tired, brown 4-door Chevy Nova, but it was my car. And I love this car as it enabled me to see my future wife in the distance and exotic land. When you were living in Summerside, Fernwood was exotic land back then. Now I knew this car's engine needed a little tender loving care. It kind of had a little bit of a knock into it. But to me at the moment, having a stereo installed in this car was my first priority. So what do all 18-year-olds do? Or was it 19 or 18? I can't remember now. So I took what little money I had and had a cheap stereo installed into it. It kind of drowned out the knocking sound. The stereo it fixed it. As luck would have it, within a few days, and I know Sandra's going to smile in a minute, I found myself driving down the Fernwood Road, stereo cranked all the way, listening to something stupid, I'm sure, and I saw Sandra ahead of me in her Dodge Diplomat. Remember that, Sandra? You were ahead of me, just halfway down the Fernwood Road, just past the Campbells, and I pulled out, stereo blazing, passing you like you were standing still, and it got deadly quiet. Big white cloud of smoke come up from underneath my car because I had thrown 2 piston rods through the oil pan. Pulled over to the side of the road. Sandra pulled up behind me, and I heard for the first time one of those wonderful little laughs that she has. Told you so, right? Anyways, and there I sat on the side of the road. No engine. Nevertheless, as I said, it got strangely quiet real fast as I passed her. You see, in retrospective, I should have cared for the engine, maybe changed the oil before I bought that stereo. My foolishness of youth is similar to our society today in many ways, where this planet is our ride through the universe. It's our car, in another way of saying it. But for many selfish reasons, we as a society collectively have been way too consumed with our creature comforts, our stereos, before being a good steward we are called to be with it. Like my youthful foolishness of needing a car stereo before checking the oil level in my car engine, humanity today is also so consumed with looking inward to selfish desires that we now forget to care for our precious ride, our very planet, through the universe. I argue we need to turn down the noise in our lives, our metaphorical stereos, our distractions, things that take our focus off what is really important, and begin to appreciate the wonders that God has created all around us. We need to realize that everything belongs to God and that God has entrusted us with its safekeeping because it is His creation. He placed us in the garden to do something with it, to look after it, to care for it. God, when He created our world, He put it in perfect balance, and we have unbalanced it because we are a little selfish. And as Christians who truly love our neighbors and desire to put God first in every aspect of our lives, we need to correct this. We need to look up to the horizon, not look down at our feet. Maybe we need to pause and turn around, maybe we need to pause, turn down the noise that distracts us. For me, it was a cheap stereo. And fix what we have neglected and abused before it's too late, before we blow the engine. Or we find ourselves parked on the side of the road as a broken people, feeling pretty humble, with no ride through the universe or to Fernwood, because we failed to prioritize the blessings that God has placed before us. And I'll just leave it at that. Amen. At this moment, we're going to have another worship.